Now, the EU and the US are meeting in Washington this week in a bid to seal a deal on liberalising the transatlantic airline market. The talks come less than 2 weeks after the Bush administration agreed to give European carriers greater access to American airlines. For the latest, we're joined by Frenken in Brussels. Raymond, good morning to you. Now, the US airline industry is being called the walking dead. Do you think the fact that so many of them are in administration and bankruptcy protection will help or hinder these talks?
Well, it may help, it may hinder. It just depends on which side of the line you're on. Obviously, the US government is very interested in getting European airlines financially more involved in the US airline business. That could provide a better future for many of the US airlines. But at the same time, the US government does not want to give up the restrictions that the US has on foreign ownership of US airlines. At the moment, that ownership is capped at 25% of the voting rights, 49% of the economic rights in the US carriers. And that is a limit that many European carriers see as a big obstacle, or that basically is a big obstacle to further integration between US and European carriers, especially British Airways, partnership, of course, with American Airlines. They want to take that much further than what they have at the moment. And in that sense, British Airways has already said that the EU really should put up a fight at the meeting in Washington this week, because those ownership restrictions are not relaxed. At the same time, though, the Washington government has said we are willing to let European carriers play a bigger role. The week we see ahead, of course, is the second week of meetings within a month. After the first week ended here in Brussels about 3 weeks ago, we were told that they were expecting at least a partial agreement at the next meeting, a partial agreement on the deal before Christmas. But it looks very clear that that partial agreement, if we're going to see that later this week at the talks in Washington, is going to be one that includes a easing of those restrictions for US carriers. It'll likely only look at certain rights that can be serviced from European airports and from US airports. So we have to wait and see what comes out of that. But rest assured, a formal final agreement on these open skies talks is not expected before the first half of next year sometime. And then when we're talking transatlantic trade disputes in the European Union and the US this week, also take a look at Tunisia. Tunisia from today hosts the World Summit on the internet. And over there, the European Union also is going to put up a fight with the United States government. The British presidency already has tabled plans in Tunisia at the internet meeting, saying that the EU no longer believes that the US government should be the only authority controlling access to domain names. At the moment, it's a non-profit organization controlled by the US Department of Commerce that actually has the right to hand out the domain names. The European Union is putting up a fight. They are saying it should be a cooperative structure. It no longer should be the US only. So it looks like that is going to be a very long and protected fight over the future of the internet. And there's a few more other stories on the EU agenda this week. Don't forget about the vote on the chemicals law proposal in the European Parliament in Strasbourg. The vote taking place only on Thursday. They'll be talking about some 1,500 amendments to a proposal to create one single law for the European chemicals industry. The idea is that this would actually ease the burden on the chemicals industry by doing away with all the 25 different national regulations and replace that with one single set of rules for all of the European Union. But of course, it's the environmentalists and also the consumer interest groups that still have a bone to pick with Gunther Verheugen, the industry commissioner, who is defending the proposal in the Parliament tomorrow. And then there's also a few other bits and pieces, but we'll keep you informed about the European Union's business story as they develop in the next few days. Ross, for now, back to you.
I also understand the European Court of Auditors is going to give Parliament another negative report on 2004 EU spending, which, as I understand, will be the 11th in a row since the court was set up in '94. Is it any wonder, Raymond, that if we continue to question the EU budget and where the money goes, the popularity of the EU is at an all-time low?
Well, yes, and it shows that not all EU organizations agree with the way that money is spent. We're talking about 100 billion euros per year, a little bit less than the 1% of EU GDP. In that sense, it's not really significant, but it still is 100 billion euros a year. And it's become a strange normality in the European Union that the European Court of Auditors cannot provide full backing for the way that this money is being spent. That is going to happen on Tuesday. They are expected to reject that EU 2004 budget again for an 11th time in a row. Still, the money has already been spent, but without the approval from the Court of Auditors.
Yeah, and it's our money. Let's not forget that. Raymond, thanks very much indeed for that. Ray Frenken.
It certainly is. Yours and mine, Ross.
Yeah, and we don't like the way they're spending it. Thank you. Ray Frenken, our EU correspondent.